Yeah. Okay, and we're recording.
Great. Well, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Anissa Villarreal. I'm an assistant agency director for Alameda County Social Services Agency. I'm so excited to be here and to be in virtual community with you. Thank you so much, Maddie and Bridget, for inviting me to speak today. Thank you kindly, and our agency is always excited to meet with students. So I was asked today to talk a little bit about my career path, how I got here, and a little bit about our agency. And so I'm hopeful that you can see the screen now in terms of the PowerPoint. So as I mentioned, I work for Alameda County Social Services Agency, and I have oversight of Government and Community Relations Department. I'll get into it a little bit later in terms of what that actually means. But in the interim, I wanted to explain a little bit about my career path and who I am. So I grew up in El Paso, Texas, born and raised. And this picture here is of my grandmother, Maria Antonia Briones. And this is a picture from 1996. I'm totally dating myself now, and with curly hair previously. But this is when my grandmother received her citizenship. And I am a first generation on my dad's side, second generation American on my mom's side. I'm 100% Mexicana. And, you know, I grew up speaking Spanish and English. Actually grew up speaking Spanglish. When I didn't know a word in English, I knew it in Spanish. If I didn't know it in Spanish, I knew it in English. And so, you know, I just had a different upbringing. I am bicultural and lived on the borderlands, which is completely a different area than California. And so my grandmother had a second grade education, but she has always been and is one of the most powerful women I know. She was so intelligent and always encouraged me to go to school, always encouraged me to do more, and that she knew that I had privileges that she didn't, and I had opportunities that she didn't. And so I always see, and I always bring my grandmother's energy forward in all that I do, because you know, my grandmother, she sold raspas for a living. Raspas are snow cones. And, you know, somehow she was able to scrape enough money. And during the time frame when she grew up in the 1940s, or actually grew up, when she was here in the United States starting in the 1940s, she didn't have the same rights that we have, the same rights that I have. She was an immigrant to this country. She didn't have the right to buy a home. She didn't have many rights, you know, or to go to school. And so for her and for her children and her grandchildren, she always said, you know, education is power. And, you know, that's one thing that no one can ever take away from you is your education. And so she always encouraged me to, you know, to do more, to be more, to just, you know, bring forward my culture, bring forward my education, and to lift up the community. And so I also love Vida Calo, which is why I put the note here. And at the end of the day, we can endure much more than we think we can. And, you know, with my grandmother, she went through so many hardships, but she, you know, grandchildren, I'm with the 20, and you know, I'm just so proud of her, and she definitely made me who I am today. So in terms of my journey, you know, I grew up, as I said, in El Paso, Texas. I don't know how familiar you are with El Paso, Texas, but for me, you know, it's a border town to Ciudad Juarez, Mexico. It's one of the most beautiful areas to grow up in. It's very family oriented. It's a lot of rich culture. It's super Mexicanote, lots of great Mexican food, but there wasn't a lot of opportunity there. And by opportunity, I mean, unless you were going to be a teacher or a police officer, which are great opportunities, there really wasn't any other options outside of that. And so I really, wanted something different, wanted something more. And I had the amazing opportunity to go to a program in my 6th grade year. There's a mother-daughter program, and the mother-daughter program was really focused on what they called underprivileged or underserved Latinas, that were first generation. I'm first generation to go to college and first generation to get my master's. And so this 6th grade program, this mother-daughter program, is really focused on getting, young girls, young Latinas interested in college. And so I would go once a month, me and my mom would go once a month on a Saturday, and they would teach us about school. And they would say, go to college, go to college, go to college. And so by the time that year ended, it wasn't a question of whether or not I was going to go to college. It was a question of where I was going to go to. And really having my mom there, even though my mom had not gone to college. I think she had like 1 semester of college, and that was it. But she always encouraged me, and as a part of the program, really encouraged me to go to school and to really focus on my education. And so my sophomore year in high school, there was a person going to college, and the second picture is actually a picture of my college library. I went to Vassar College in Poughkeepsie, New York. And there was a young lady who had come back. She was attending Vassar at the time. She came back to my sophomore year English class, and she said, hey, if you're interested, fill out this card and we'll send you information on the college. And she talked about how amazing it was to be living in New York and how amazing she had gone to junior year abroad in Venezuela. And I just thought to myself, like, oh my gosh, I want to go to New York, or I want to go to, a study abroad. I didn't even know how or what to do or how I was going to pay for it, but I just wanted to do it. And one of the key things she told me was that Vassar is a need. That means that the college will accept you on your merit only. And then once you're accepted into the college, then they look at your finances. Well, at the time, I grew up, we didn't have much. My parents always provided, we had a roof over our heads, food on the table, and a warm bed to sleep in at night. But outside of that, my parents lived paycheck to paycheck. And so there's no way that they could afford for me to go to college. And so when she said, need blind, I thought, oh my gosh, this is my ticket out of here. And like I said, I loved El Paso, but I wanted something more. And I didn't know what that more was. I just knew that it wasn't in El Paso. And so my senior year, I applied to Vassar, and they actually have early admission. And so you can apply to see if they will let you in, and you have a better chance of getting in if you do early admission. And basically you say, yes, if I get accepted, I will go there. I went, they accepted me, and I got a full scholarship to attend. And then the way they do it is that you get if you get a full scholarship or a merit scholarship, you still have a parent contribution, and then you have a student contribution. Well, that was okay for the first 2 years. My parents' contribution was $2,000 a year because my parents couldn't afford much. And it was actually pretty equivalent to what it would be like if I went to the local university. But my junior year, right before my junior year, my parents, my grandmother fell ill. The picture of my grandmother that you saw earlier, she fell ill and she became bedridden. And my father, at the same time, it was like within a few weeks, broke his leg in two places. And so it was the first time that my mom had said, you know what, actually, can you stay and not go back to college because I need help here. And I was devastated, right? Like, one, my parents had never asked me to that extent to help around the house. And that summer I was working 2 jobs and I was helping, obviously, of course, but not to stay and not go back to college. And so I desperately contacted the financial aid school and asked for more funds. And then I also worked with social services locally to try to get some assistance for my grandmother who was bedridden and get some support for my mom. And the stars aligned, the universe worked in my favor, and it all came together literally about 2 weeks before I was going to go back for my junior year. And the financial aid gave me a really full scholarship. They gave me an additional $20,000 to cover all my expenses, my student loans, and my parents. So my parents no longer had to pay for the last 2 years of my college. And then the in-home supportive services kicked in, and they sent someone to assist my mom 8 hours a day. And it was really, I think, that moment for me that I really solidified that I wanted to work in public service, right? I wanted to help other people because I had been so blessed and other people had helped me. You know, people that didn't know me, people that just gave me an opportunity and said, you know, we believe in you. Sorry, I'm getting teary-eyed. So I finished Vassar. I graduated back my junior year. I did study abroad. I studied abroad in Spain. And again, through my full scholarship, the scholarship paid for my program at the Instituto Internacional in Madrid, Spain. And then I graduated from Vassar. And then I found myself like, what am I going to do? And I ended up going to Boston for a summer. And then one of my other grandmothers fell ill. I went back to El Paso, stayed there for a few weeks, was her caregiver until she passed. And then I moved to Florida. Long story short, I ended up in California. I've been in California since 2001. 2001. And I originally worked for 2 different shelters. I worked for a domestic violence shelter in Fremont. Previous to that, in the shelter in Florida. I was a child case manager originally, and then I moved over and became a victim witness advocate, a consultant for the district attorney's office, victim witness division. That's where I met Bridget long ago, about 20 years ago. Totally dating myself. And I did that for about 8 years. And then I really felt like I wanted to make a difference in a different way. I loved what I was doing. I love that I was affecting change on an individual level, case by case, but I felt like I needed to do something more. And I didn't know what that more was. I didn't know how I was going to do it, but I just knew that I wanted to do it. And so I was blessed with the opportunity to move over to the Board of Supervisors. I worked there for a little less than 2 years. I worked as a policy aide and then deputy chief of staff for a county supervisor. I love that job. I would never have left that job, but the board supervisor that I worked for resigned. And so I found myself in a space of trying to figure out, you know, what am I going to do next? Where am I going to go? And I'd always had the pull to go back and get my master's degree, but I hadn't had the push. And that was kind of the push that I needed to move over. But in the interim, I had to apply for a master's degree, so I needed a job. And so I was recruited back to the district attorney's office. Nancy Amelli was amazing, gave me an awesome opportunity. She recruited me back. Initially, I said no, because I thought she wanted me to come back to work for victim services. And while I loved victim services, I no longer wanted to do that. And so she said, well, what do you want to do? And really, that was the first time where somebody had asked me, like, what do you want to do? And so I took that as an opportunity to write my way into my next job. I sat down, wrote a proposal, did some research, thought about what I wanted to do. As I mentioned, I really loved the role that I was in working for a board supervisor. So I tried to translate that into how could I do this role, but for a district attorney. I researched and found out that there were 2 other district attorneys in the state of California that had a policy director. And so I said, well, wouldn't that be awesome? I told Nancy, wouldn't it be awesome if you were the 3rd district attorney in the state of California to have a policy director? Wouldn't you want somebody like that? And wrote a proposal, gave it to her, and she went for it. And so that's how I wrote my way into that job. I did that for a little less than 2 years, got into my master's program, decided I wanted to transition, just, go straight in, get my master's and get out. I did that, graduated with honors from San Francisco State University, and my master's in 2015. Went for a brief stint. I went over to become a district director for the assembly member in San Jose. Did that for a little bit and then found my way back to the county. I was a policy director here for Alameda County Social Services over the last 4 years or previous 4 years. And now I transitioned into my new role as the assistant agency director. Services. So I want to tell you a little bit about our agency so that I can give you a little bit of context of who we are, who we serve, and how we deliver services. So Alameda County Social Service Agency, we serve over 400,000 people a month. I'm going to say that again, over 400,000 people a month. What that means is that about a quarter of the population receives some kind of service from our agency at any given time. And so here you have a visual of our new website. We recently gives you an overview of the different programs that we serve. Most notably, our programs include CalFresh, which is generally previously known as food stamps. So CalFresh, Medi-Cal, so it's medical insurance, as well as assistance for immigrants and refugees, older adults. So we do food nutrition, home delivery, in-home supportive services. So that similar program like I talked about for my grandmother, where if someone's living at home, they don't really have funds to help support them. That's a program that we do have within our agency. We also have children and family services, which is known for like foster care or adoption services. That's also within our agency. And so we just have a variety of services, including crisis intervention, shelter, housing. And so if you look at our website, this is our web address, www.alamedacounty.socialservices.org. Please take a peek. You can do most all our applications are online, and feel free to reach out at any point if you have questions as well. So what is government and community relations? My department is a fairly new department, so I've kind of wrote my way in and establishing a new department over the last almost 2 years. In January, it'll be 2 years. But my division is made up of all the smaller departments that don't neatly fit into a program department. So I oversee the Office of Policy, Office of Data and Evaluation, Information Systems, Program Integrity, and the Workforce Development Board. We represent the agency at community events. We foster relationships with constituent groups and electeds and leaders. We also just offer a variety of agency-wide administration services. So in my department, I have about 165 staff members that I oversee. I also oversee emergency management, the Department of Disaster Preparedness. So when I first got my position, like I said, I started in about February of last year. It was just in time and really a month before COVID hit. And so what I realized quickly that a part of my job and oversight of disaster preparedness and emergency management is that I would be working closely with our county emergency operations center. And so I actually serve in the dual role of being an assistant agency director, and then in an emergency, I've become the care and shelter branch chief. And in that role, I have oversight of emergency food, emergency shelter, and emergency childcare. So if you can imagine, in COVID-19, a month into my new role, everything hit at once. And so within a few weeks, we were reached out by the food bank, and the food bank came to our agency and said, hey, we generally have 300 partners across Alameda County, and 100 of our partners have shut down. How can the county assist us? And we need to uplift an emergency food distribution site as soon as possible. Well, I didn't even know what that meant. Oh my gosh. Okay, so we went into quick action, and through the Emergency Operations Center, through the Sheriff's Office, in Oakland. And within the first week of serving at the distribution site, that site was serving close to 800 to 1,000 cars on any given day. We served on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. Initially, the county uplifted it with disaster service workers. So if you work for the county, you get an ID card, and the back of your ID card says you are a disaster service worker. And so anyone who is working for our agency can be pulled out of kind of their line or everyday work and then transition into disaster service work. We were at that site for close to 7 months until we were able to site. Within a week, we were serving 400 to 600 cars at any given time. We've also transitioned. We were at that site at the county for about 4 or 5 months, and then we transitioned it to a community-based organization. In addition, there was also a part of my role is to work with Healthcare Services Agency, and we uplifted emergency hotels. So there's a project called Project Room Key, and Project Room Key is funding. We received funding from the state, and in fact, we received a call from the state saying, hey, we've identified Oakland as the first city or county that we would like to uplift this new program called Project Room Key. I had no idea what that uplift it, and we need you to uplift it within 72 hours. And we were like, what? How are we going to do this in 72 hours? So we went, into high gear. First, we said, no, we can't do this in 72 hours. Give us at least 2 weeks. We organized 24/7 with our healthcare services partner agency, and around the clock. And within 2 weeks, we were able to uplift the first hotel. Our county uplifted 9 hotels at any given time. Our department helped uplift the first 2, and then Healthcare Services Agency took over those hotels. In addition, we also uplifted a program called Great Plates Delivered, which was an emergency food distribution site for older adults. We also uplifted it within a month time, which was unheard of in terms of it. We had to create it, do the program, and distribute within a month. And it was pretty ridiculous, but we did it. But I tell you this to say that, emergency operations, especially over the last year or 18 months with COVID, has been intense. But a part of it is that, the county has said, where are all these food sites? Where are all these programs happening? And so through the Emergency Operations Center, we pulled the information from all the cities. And so my team established this emergency food testing and services map. All of this map, you can filter it by city, you can filter it by type of service, and it gives you information on where to locate it, address, phone number, and website as well. So I have some actions for you today. I know that you guys thought that I was just going to be talking the whole time, but in case, I don't know if you have any questions for me, and I welcome your questions, absolutely. But I also have some actions for you. And, a part of the way that I got to where I'm at is that I asked a lot of questions. I wrote my own proposals. I, asked people to go to coffee and to tea and to say, how did you get to where you're at? And how can I, establish my own path? And so I would encourage you, I have 3 actions for you to do, actually 4 actions. One, ask a person to coffee or tea that works in a career that you are interested in. The second thing I would encourage you to do is to write your own way. So if there's an idea that you have, keep telling people your idea. Let it grow and morph into whatever your vision is. Don't be afraid to write your own way. 3, one thing that it has been extremely helpful to me in my roles is to learn about data and to learn about budgets. One of the things that is extremely important is that you need to know what you're working with, right? Like how many people are receiving a service, or what's the gap? How many people need to receive the service, and how much would it cost? And where do you get the funding from, right? So you'll always want to know, to follow the money. Where is the money coming from, and where can I ask for the money to do this program or do this service? So as much as you're able, if you continue forward either in high school or you have visions to go to college, I would encourage you to look at data and take courses on budgets, because that has been crucial to my development in my professionalism and in my personal life as well. And then last, certainly not least, do one thing today that can help you work towards your future goals. Whatever that looks like for you, just try one new thing. Try one new thing every day, but definitely start today. That's all I have, Maddie. I don't know if there's any questions for me or any thoughts.